Chosen ones, hear this clearly. When love finds you, you are not meant to broadcast it. This is not something to brush past or handle casually. This moment carries consequence for what is forming in your life. And if you treat it lightly, you may lose a layer of protection that was quietly surrounding you. I am telling you directly, when this connection enters your life and begins to shift your inner world, restraint will become your safeguard and your discernment will be tested in ways you didn't anticipate. What this means is simple, but urgent. What is growing is not just emotion, it is something taking shape, and not everyone around you is ready to witness it or understand it. If you reveal it too early or place it in the wrong hands, you expose something that is still developing and you invite outside interpretation, pressure, and hidden influence into something that needs space to become real. Stay with this and take it in fully, because what you are about to understand will shape how you protect what is forming and how you preserve what is being built within you. You need to grasp this at a deeper level. What is unfolding in your life is not random. It carries direction, even if you cannot fully see it yet. You are being placed in a position to hold something that others may misread, and that misunderstanding can quickly turn into comparison, doubt, or interference. This is why silence is not weakness. It is discipline. It is protection over something that has not finished becoming. When you remain quiet, you allow what has started to develop without disruption, without unnecessary pressure, and without the noise that fractures your focus. This is not about hiding out of fear. It is about staying aligned with what is real and guarding what is not ready to be interpreted by everyone. There will come a moment when what you feel becomes more visible, more tangible. And in that moment, your instinct may push you to share it, to express it loudly, or to prove something to those who never believed in you. But you need to resist that pull, because not every eye that turns toward you is aligned with your experience. Some are analyzing, some are comparing, and some are quietly inserting themselves into something they were never part of. You are not meant to explain what you are feeling. You are meant to take responsibility for it. You are not required to announce what is growing. You are required to protect it. As you move through this phase, you will start to notice subtle shifts in how people respond to you. This is part of the process. Those who never paid attention may suddenly show interest. Those who were distant may begin to move closer. This is not random. It reveals what was always present beneath the surface. And if you speak too openly about what is still forming, you may open access to people and opinions that should have remained outside. Silence keeps those boundaries intact. It allows you to observe clearly without being shaped by external reactions. There is something deeper happening beneath all of this. What you are experiencing is not just emotional, it is developmental. It is tied to who you are becoming, and it is meant to create stability, direction, and impact at the right time. If you rush to expose it, you interfere with the timing that allows it to mature properly. Timing matters more than excitement, and patience carries more strength than impulse. You are being conditioned to move with awareness, not reaction. Sit with that for a moment. What is forming is not meant for display. It is meant to guide you. It will influence your decisions, open new paths, and require clarity you won't have if too many voices enter too early. Because once the noise begins, your perception shifts. You stop feeling directly and you start filtering everything through what others think. That is why quiet is necessary. Because in quiet, you stay connected to what is actually happening. In noise, you begin to experience everything secondhand. There is also a form of protection in not revealing everything, because not all disruption comes openly. Some of it arrives as advice, as opinions that sound reasonable but are not aligned, as expectations that slowly reshape your decisions. The moment people know what you are experiencing, they begin to feel entitled to interpret it, to question it, to guide it. And that is where distortion begins. Keeping it private allows you to remain free from that influence. You may question why this guidance is so firm. It is because there are dynamics at play that you cannot fully see yet. You do not know how every person will respond. You do not see how timing affects outcomes. And you do not yet feel the weight of what is forming. This is not a call to isolate yourself. It is a call to be precise about what you reveal and when you reveal it. There is a difference between living openly and exposing something that is still unfinished. You can feel joy, you can feel gratitude, but you also need to exercise control. As you continue forward, remember this. The depth of what you are experiencing is not proven by how loudly you share it, but by how carefully you sustain it. Real strength does not need constant expression, and real connection does not need external confirmation. The world will push you to show, to define, to label, to explain. But what you are being guided toward is different. You are being guided to let it develop, to protect it, and to allow it to become solid without interference. What grows without constant exposure becomes stable, grounded, and lasting. You are not being ignored. You are being given space. You are not being held back. You are being positioned. And when the moment arrives where everything becomes clear and established, you will understand why restraint mattered. You will see how keeping it contained preserved what could have been weakened, and how your discipline protected you from confusion that could have altered everything. As you move through this, your awareness will sharpen. Conversations will feel different. Intentions will become easier to read. You will begin to notice when something does not align with what you're experiencing internally. This awareness is not meant to make you defensive. It is meant to keep you steady. When you remain quiet about what is developing, you create space to observe without interference. And that space protects you from decisions driven by pressure instead of clarity. There will be moments when people ask simple questions that carry deeper curiosity underneath. They may ask what has changed, how things are going, what is happening in your life, and they may expect full answers. In those moments, understand this clearly. You are not obligated to reveal everything. You can respond calmly, simply, without opening access to something that is still forming. Not everyone needs full visibility into your experience. Boundaries are not rejection. They are structure. They allow you to move forward without carrying unnecessary influence. Hold that line. You are also stepping into a phase where steadiness will matter more than excitement. It is easy to feel elevated when something new begins, but it takes control to nurture it properly over time. This is not just about experiencing something meaningful. It is about learning how to hold it without letting it collapse under pressure. When you keep it contained, you remove unnecessary interference and remain centered on what actually matters. Your thoughts become clearer, your actions more deliberate, and your responses less driven by what others expect from you. This is how something real becomes stable, not through constant expression, but through quiet consistency and thoughtful choices. Some people will misread your restraint, and you must accept that without letting it disturb your balance. They may assume you're distant or believe something about you has shifted, but what is actually happening is development. Growth often appears like distance to those who are not moving in the same direction. You are not meant to stay the same just to maintain familiarity for others. You are meant to step into what is forming, even if it changes how you are perceived. What you are experiencing is guided by something deeper than their interpretations or expectations. And there is another layer beneath this, something that touches how you see yourself. When this connection begins to deepen, it will challenge your sense of identity. At times, you may feel uncertain or question whether you are ready to hold something with this kind of depth. In those moments, do not look outward for reassurance. Return inward. The connection is already unfolding, and you are already in the process of becoming who can hold it. Silence helps you stay rooted in that reality because it prevents you from chasing approval that would only distort your experience. You also need to be mindful of comparison because once something meaningful begins, it becomes easy to measure it against others or allow others to measure themselves against you. That creates pressure, tension, and unnecessary competition. What is developing in your life is not meant to be placed beside someone else's story. It is specific to you. When you keep it private, you protect yourself from these distortions and remain aligned with your own path. Your role is not to match anyone else's experience. It is to allow what is yours to fully take shape. As this connection evolves, you will notice possibilities opening that were not visible before. These moments will require careful awareness, and not every opportunity to express or define what you have should be taken. Silence gives you the space to consider without being rushed. When others are unaware of what is happening, they cannot steer you toward expressions or decisions that do not belong to you. You gain the freedom to pause, to observe, and to act only when it feels true. That freedom is part of what protects the connection, and it must be preserved. There is also responsibility in what you are experiencing, and it extends beyond how it feels to you. What is forming has a potential to influence, to support, and to create something meaningful over time. But that influence must be guided, not scattered. If you expose it too early, you may find yourself pulled in multiple directions, trying to meet expectations that were never yours to carry. When you remain quiet, you stay focused on what actually matters, moving with intention instead of reacting to pressure. You are not alone in this process, even when it feels internal and unseen. There is a direction within it that continues to guide each step. When you choose silence, you are not withdrawing, you are aligning. You are choosing clarity over confusion and direction over distraction. That alignment allows you to move through situations that might otherwise overwhelm you. It gives you steadiness where others might feel uncertain. Understand this clearly. How you handle this stage will shape what comes next. If you move with awareness, you allow something strong and lasting to develop. If you rush or expose too much too soon, you risk introducing complications that could have been avoided. This is why there is a need for care, because the goal is not just to experience something meaningful, but to allow it to reach its full form without unnecessary disruption. You are being given both the experience and the awareness to manage it, and together they lead to something stable. This is why you are being guided towards stillness and discernment so you can recognize where to remain and where to step back. Silence helps you move through this without conflict, without over-explaining, and without creating tension that could interfere with what is forming. There will be moments when you feel the urge to explain yourself, to justify your choices, or to prove that nothing about you has changed. But you need to understand that growth reshapes how you move, how you think, and how you respond. Not everyone will recognize or understand that shift. You are not required to reduce yourself to fit into spaces that no longer align with who you are becoming. You are allowed to continue forward with calm, even if it means leaving certain things behind without explanation. In those moments, your restraint becomes your strength. It allows you to transition without resistance, without unnecessary noise, and without compromising what is still taking shape. Chosen ones, understand this part carefully. The moment you start letting others see what is still forming, something subtle begins to change within you. You may think you are simply sharing your experience, but what actually begins to happen is this. Your awareness shifts. You are no longer just feeling what is there. You begin to observe it from the outside. You start noticing how it looks, how it sounds when you speak about it, how it might be perceived. And without realizing it, you move from experiencing the connection to managing it. This is where distortion quietly enters. Because now, instead of being present inside what is growing, part of you is standing outside of it, evaluating it. You begin to question things that once felt natural. You begin to compare what you have with what others expect it to be. You begin to adjust your behavior, your expression, even your emotions, not based on what is real, but based on how it is received. And that shift is where something genuine can start to lose its clarity. This is why early exposure is not just risky because of others. It is risky because of what it does to you. Chosen ones, understand this part carefully. The moment you begin to let others see what is still forming, something subtle begins to shift within you. You may believe you are simply sharing what you feel, but what actually begins to happen is this. Your awareness changes. You are no longer fully inside the experience. A part of you steps outside of it. You start noticing how it appears, how it sounds when spoken out loud, how it might be interpreted, and without realizing it, you move from living it to managing it. This is where distortion quietly enters. Because now, instead of being fully present with what is growing, a part of you is watching it, evaluating it, adjusting it. You begin to question what once felt natural. You begin to compare what you have with what others expect it to be. You begin to shape your reactions, your words, even your emotions. Not from truth, but from perception. And that shift is where something real can start to lose its clarity. This is why early exposure is not only risky because of others, it is risky because of what it does to you. Because once you start experiencing it through other people's responses, you are no longer connected to it directly. You are connected to reflections of it. And reflections are unstable. They change depending on who is looking, what they believe, what they project. So what you feel begins to fluctuate, not because it is weak, but because it is being filtered. Understand this deeply. What is still forming requires direct experience. It requires space where it can exist without being observed, labeled, or interpreted. The moment too many perspectives enter, clarity begins to fracture. And once clarity fractures, you start trying to fix something that was never broken. You start overthinking, you start analyzing, you start searching for certainty in places that cannot give it. And slowly, without realizing it, you move further away from what you originally felt. This is how something genuine becomes complicated, not because it lacked depth, but because it was exposed before it became stable. So you must be aware of this pattern, because the danger is not loud. It does not announce itself. It happens quietly, through small shifts in how you think, how you respond, how you interpret what is happening. And if you are not paying attention, you will believe the confusion is coming from the connection itself, when in reality it is coming from interference. This is why your discipline matters now more than ever, not just in what you say to others, but in what you allow to influence your perception. Because once your perception is influenced, your experience changes. And once your experience changes, your decisions begin to follow that distortion. So stay rooted. Return to what you feel when there is no audience. Return to how it exists when it is not being explained, not being compared, not being observed. That is where the truth of it lives. There will be moments where the urge to share becomes strong again. Moments where you want reassurance, confirmation, or validation. In those moments, pause, because what you are seeking externally is often something that becomes clear internally when you give it enough space. You do not need constant feedback to understand something real. You need uninterrupted experience. Let it unfold without commentary. Let it develop without pressure. Let it become clear on its own terms, because what is real does not become stronger through exposure. It becomes stronger through stability. And stability is built in environments where it is not constantly being examined. So protect that environment, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Because once something reaches a point where it is fully formed, fully stable, fully clear, no amount of outside perception can distort it. But until then, it is your responsibility to guard it, not just from others, but from the version of yourself that starts to perform instead of feel. Hold your position, stay inside the experience, and let what is real become undeniable without interference. Chosen ones, there is something you need to see clearly. When you protect what is forming, when you resist the urge to expose it too early, when you allow it to exist without constant interpretation, something powerful begins to happen. It stabilizes, not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly, consistently. What once felt uncertain becomes clear. What once needed reassurance becomes self-evident. What once made you question begins to stand on its own. Because anything that survives without external validation develops its own structure. It no longer depends on reactions. It no longer shifts based on opinions. It no longer needs to be explained to feel real. It simply is. And when something reaches that point, it cannot be easily shaken. Not by doubt, not by comparison, not by outside perspective, because it was not built in those conditions. It was built in clarity. Understand this. The goal was never to hide it forever. The goal was to allow it to become strong enough that it no longer needs protection. There comes a moment, not forced, not announced, where what you have becomes visible on its own. Not because you revealed it, but because it became undeniable. And when that moment arrives, you will notice something different. You will not feel the urge to prove it. You will not feel the need to explain it. You will not feel pressure to make others understand it, because you are no longer seeking confirmation. You are standing in something that has already confirmed itself. And that is the difference. When something is exposed too early, you spend your time defending it. When something is developed in silence, you spend no time defending it at all, because it speaks through its stability. This is why restraint was necessary. This is why silence mattered. This is why you were guided to hold it instead of display it, not to limit you, but to allow it to become something real. So understand your role in this clearly. You were not meant to perform it. You were not meant to explain it. You were not meant to seek approval for it. You were meant to experience it fully, protect it intentionally, and allow it to reach a point where it no longer depends on anything outside of itself. That is when it becomes unshakable. That is when it becomes yours. And that is when nothing, no opinion, no comparison, no outside voice can take you out of it. Hold that standard and don't break it early.